Hey, what's up, YouTube? I'm back with another video. See, I told you I'd try to be more active. I'm trying. I really am. There was one topic I wanted to talk about specifically today. Um, this past Friday, May 15th, was a little bit rough for me. Actually, the whole week has been rough for me from Mother's Day, that was on Sunday on. That whole week was rough for me. Mainly because on May 15th, I would have had a 1 year old. Back in October of 2018, 4 days after my birthday, I miscarried my first. That was kind of traumatic. It really was. He or she, because I wasn't far enough along to know if it would have been a boy or girl. May 15th of last year, 2019, is when they would have been born. And this is all still very new for me as far as that grief process goes. And it's a little strange for me. My father passed away in June of 2016. First anniversary date for that, once you get to birthdays, holidays, then you circle back around to the death date. The first were kind of hard because that's the first type of death that I had that really had an impact on my life. I've lost relatives in the past that I'm not saying they weren't a huge impact in my life, but they didn't really have a part in my upbringing, things like that, like of course a parent does. So I've gotten pretty used to that. I've kind of realized now that doesn't mean that, randomly I won't think about my father and get emotional. But I do expect it on death dates, birthdays, holidays, things like that. It's expected. But this grief is different for me. And there are quite a few reasons why. It's different and it's strange for me because I wasn't even far enough along to know what gender the baby would have been. Let alone get to a point where I'm able to actually hold them, name them, get any type of moments with them. I didn't even get any type of, I wasn't even far enough along to really kind of even get an ultrasound. And I didn't really even see a glimpse of anything until I was in the ER, right before I found out I had miscarried. So there was nothing physical to hold on to. So it's strange because still feel like I'm mourning something that I never even got to see, never got to touch, hold, anything. Um, so that's strange. It's very strange. And then you get to a point, because this was my first, I don't have any kids. Then you get to a point where you're just like, does it even make sense to mourn something that never was? And then another reason why it's strange, I've spent my entire life saying that I do not want children. And it's not that I don't like kids or I just really couldn't see myself being a mom. It's just that I was always fearful of it because that's a huge responsibility. And that's not something that I feel like a lot of people, not, I wouldn't say that. That some people aren't aware of. People think, oh, babies are cute. Everyone, I have this motherly instinct and things like that. But my fear always goes to not baby, not toddler, but every aspect of this little human's life. I'm responsible for that. I have to raise a person, not a baby, not a child. I have to raise a person to make sure they are a decent person, a kind person, a smart person, a driven person, a positive person. And that's scary, especially when you feel like that I'm not there yet. How am I going to get somebody else there? So there was always that fear. And then, of course, we all have toxic family drama and cycles, and you're just like, let me kind of decipher and really break down any toxic traits that may be within me that I possibly don't even recognize because it's normal for me. Let me break that down before I bring a person into this world and then end up passing that negativity onto them unintentionally. So then there's that grief of me saying that I've never wanted kids, and then I get pregnant and then lose said kid. And then there's that guilt of, do I even have the right to mourn for something I had spent most of my life saying that I didn't want? That's strange. And then what even makes that even stranger is, I know there's a lot of people in this world. There's a few people in my life that I've known that has had multiple miscarriages, or just know that they can't have children at all. Have tried and failed, And these are people, these are women that I know want to be mothers. They really want to be in that role. And then there's that guilt of, do I have the right to mourn the way that they mourn? They want something and lost it or couldn't have it. And there's something that I'm not saying that I didn't want this child. I really wanted this child. Once I found out I was pregnant, I really wanted this child. But again, in my past, I didn't want any. I didn't want to be bothered with it. I didn't want that responsibility. So do I have the right to mourn on the same plane that women who want to be mothers do? I see my therapist once a month, and my appointment fell on this week, thank God. And she made a great point of that you mourn whether you know that baby or not, because once that moment you find out you're pregnant, you're planning, you're dreaming, you're daydreaming, you're trying to get your affairs in order, so really you're kind of just mourning what could have been, what would have been, what should have been. And that's true, because I found out I'm making Amazon wish list. I was still in school, so I beefed up that next semester. I'm like, because I only had when I was pregnant, I think I only had about 3 semesters left. And I was trying to pile on as many classes as possible so I could make it down to 2. And of course that didn't work, because I think we're only 2 months into the semester when I miscarried, and I fell off I was falling off anyway, because one of the major symptoms I had was fatigue. I was tired. So studying, forget it. So I was already kind of behind, and then when I miscarried, I just said, fuck it. I had 4 classes, and I dropped 3 of them. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So yeah, I piled all that in. I was making plans as far as what I was going to do with saving money. Any plans that I had for trips or vacations up to that point, cancel them. That's done. I can't, I can't afford that. I've got a kid to think of now. Thinking of places, your living situations and things like that. I was, mapping all of that out, and it just didn't happen. And there's another part of the guilt that I think of, which is thinking that if I had had that child, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't have, possibly I may have had to put my school on hold. I graduated this year. So maybe I wouldn't be graduating right now. Maybe I would still be stuck in my horrible job situation because I didn't have the time to find childcare to move on to the job that I have now that is full time. We have this whole COVID situation going on. How would I have handled that with a baby? And if I did move on to the job that I have now and I'm working from home, how could I have juggled a baby, working from home, and a whole deadly virus going around? How could I have handled that? My boyfriend and I situation, we're good now, but 6 to 8 months afterwards, we had a major falling out. Would that have made our situation better or worse if that child was here? Because we had a lot of toxic things to work out. They weren't outright toxic, but they were just little things that really needed to be worked out, that I felt like in this past year, we've had the time to actually kind of iron it out little by little. Will we have time to do that when you've got, an infant, a newborn? And I feel guilty about that because I feel like that says that I'm glad this baby didn't come. And that's not what I mean. I see it as I wouldn't mind being a mom in the future. And I feel like I'm getting my life into a spot where I can be able to take care of and provide for a kid. And I hope that doesn't take away from the one that would have been here. And like I said, I really feel guilty about that. I really feel like it's saying that I didn't want that child. I did. I really did. And it's still hard and it's still strange. It's such a strange grief because you're mourning a person that was not here physically. So I can't mourn like his or her little quirks that I'm gonna miss, what his or her face even looked like, his or her talents. Like, I don't have any of that. I'm just mourning something that I knew I helped grow for a small amount of time. And that's another guilt part too, is the guilt of, and I know doctors, they tell you it's like, no, it happens. And then too, again, because since I've never been interested in having kids, I didn't realize how common this was. I thought this was something that was more rare than not. And so even though they tell you like, no, it happens, the science of it and blah, blah, blah. But there's still always that part of you that thinks, what did I do? Was it because I was eating like shit and, and that obviously is not going to help anybody grow? Is it because at that point in time I was in this shitty job and I held on to this stress all of the time? I was so stressed and aggravated and irritated and angry all the time because of this job. And was that it? Was it the stress of trying to keep up with school and things like that? Did I hurt it because of that? There's always that guilt of feeling like there's something on my end where I failed, and that's why that baby didn't come to be. And I think that's the majority of my grief of feeling like I did something. And I know that can't be totally true. I was at least a month, maybe not full month, before I finally was able to get a doctor's appointment and confirm that I was pregnant. But I mean, especially a woman, but I would assume for a guy, anybody, once you feel like something's different with your body, you can tell it. I hadn't gotten to a point where I was having any major symptoms. I never got morning sickness, thank God. But I was having just stomach pains. And I knew that wasn't something that was new. So I was just like, I'm probably pregnant. Even though tests were coming back negative, I was like, I'm probably pregnant. And then when I went to the doctor and I told the doctor, I was like, I'm having stomach pains, but pregnancy tests are coming back negative. So maybe check into that. And, came back positive. So, I mean, that's a whole month where who knows what I could have been doing as far as like my stress levels, my food intake, and, not exercising, whatever it is it may be. I just feel like I had some hand in this baby not making it. And that's unfortunate, because I know that's not 100% true, but I still feel that. I still feel that way very much. I know for the few videos I've had, I've asked questions of you guys who are watching. I'm not going to do that with this one because it's such a sensitive subject. And I realized that when I've written a few blog posts about it, especially when I did find out I miscarried, because I was already in the middle of writing this long letter, that I had started when I found out I was pregnant. Writing a letter to the baby that hopefully once he or she got old enough that I could have, given to them. And I never really finished the letter up until I miscarried. And when I miscarried, I finished it as almost like a remembrance. And then once I posted things like that, and once I had announced to people that, because no, only a few people knew that I was pregnant. My boyfriend, of course, and my best friends, they knew. I didn't tell my mom at that point because my birthday's in October. So again, baby miscarried a couple days after my birthday. And I was holding that news for my mother because her birthday's in November. And that's what's going to be my present to her, to let her know that she was going to be a grandmother. And it didn't make it that far. So she didn't find out until the day I miscarried. But once I, wrote the few blog posts that I did and posted them, and then, I had friends that have been in my life for years, years. And maybe because we're not, physically close to each other, talk a whole lot, we're, private messaging me and saying, I've been through a few of these. So I understand. And, I didn't know. And that's because the grief sometimes is so heavy, especially when you have women who wanted to be mothers. The grief is so heavy that it's not something you really talk about out in the open. It's still so taboo. So I'm not going to ask any questions. It's sensitive. I'm not asking people to go to the comment section like, yeah, I know what you're. No, it's really still, it's a hard thing to talk about. It's slightly easy for me because that's how I process things. It's how I process things. I write it, I post it, in hopes to reach people who may have gone through the same things, who maybe don't feel like sharing their story, or too scared to, or too hurt to. This week has been rough. And speaking with my therapist the other day, it's yeah, she even asked me, she's like, I don't, that's got to be a hard thing to handle, because I have baby's due date in May, father's death date in June, father's birthday in August. That's kind of a lot of stuff back to back. And it is. It is. And that's why I find it important for me to always talk about it, to always write about it, to get it out so that I'm not holding on to it, because that's a lot of grief to hold on to. It's a lot of grief to hold on to. It's too much for one person. I'm just sharing my story with you guys, and hopefully it will reach, you know, other people who are going through the same thing. You're not alone. Not at all. I never expect my videos to last this long. I'm so sorry. But I do appreciate the few of you who do listen to my videos and read my writing and, reach out to me. I really do appreciate that. So again, I'll try to be more active. I'll try to be too, I'm not going to promise that because some of my topics are kind of depressing. I'm sorry. Maybe in the future I'll think of something silly to talk about. I don't know. I'm still new at all of this. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Take care of yourself. Wash your hands. And be careful, because it's scary times now. And, we're already dealing with past traumas that we might be carrying. And then 2020 just decide to wreck shit. But yeah, definitely take care of yourself. All right. Thanks, guys.